My Amplified unit, welcome to the third ever BC's Pro Wrestling Amplified podcast. This doesn't happen without you guys smashing that subscribe button, pressing the notification bell, and always being right here with the Amplified Man each and every Sunday as we try this new thing, this new podcast style format. The last two, tremendous successes. You guys really enjoyed it. The watch time was off the charts. And we talked a lot, 2 hours on each show of Pro Wrestling, man. We had featured stories, rapid fire news topics, breaking news. We had it all, man. And this week's episode is going to be no different, I assure you. When you think of the biggest news stories of the week, 3 of them anyway, I've broken them into featured length scenes for later in this very podcast, guys. We are going to talk in depth about Becky Lynch. Has her momentum slowed down? Is she going to be able to fuel that momentum to WrestleMania in a big time and even a main event match? Is she the man or is she not? We're going to talk a lot about Becky Lynch and the real thing that's happening behind the scenes, guys, and what happened to her momentum. Can she get it back? We're going to talk all about that later, almost a half an hour dedicated just to that subject. We're going to have a whole scene dedicated to what I'm calling sex sells. There was a big couple of segments this past week on Raw and SmackDown with Alexa Bliss and Mandy Rose respectively, and everybody was up in arms. A lot of people saying, what's wrong with that? It's just characters playing in a television show, and it's one aspect of a television show. And professional wrestling has always had provocative women. And then you have the other half, today's SJW, social justice warriors, that are up in arms and pissed off that women are being used in a sexy way. But we're going to talk a lot about that. Another almost half an hour dedicated to that subject alone. We're going to have another scene about it. And then, of course, the revival. Have they asked for their releases? Are they released as of right now? The ins and outs and everything that's happening with the revival. Almost a half an hour dedicated to that alone. Because there's so much intertwined within that one story that we needed that long to talk about it. So those are 3 huge news topics from this past week in pro wrestling, more specifically the WWE, that I've blown up and I put them into featured scenes. But you guys know how I like to start this show off, and that's with the opening credits. These are rapid-fire newsworthy topics. I'm going to hit you with them kind of quickly, and then again, we can get into our featured stories, our featured scenes. So I want to start off, there's no better place to start off than with AJ Styles. Rumors are abound that his contract is ending soon, and he might be going over to AEW. From what I'm hearing, guys, that is 100% true. Half of it, not so fast. The fact that his contract is ending soon, that is not rumor. After WrestleMania 35 this year, just a couple of months away, AJ Styles' contract with WWE is fulfilled. It is ended. There is no more dates after WrestleMania. However, him going to AEW as the frontrunner right now, I am hearing is absolutely not truthful, and that he is going to resign with WWE. I've heard this from multiple sources, guys, reputable, not just some fucking knockoff rumor mill on the side of 5th Avenue. Reputable people that I've heard this from. He is absolutely expected to re-sign with WWE way before WrestleMania. So before his contract even expires, he will be signing with Vince McMahon. And I definitely, without question, guys, believe this to be true, because why else would Vince McMahon dedicate this much stock into AJ Styles? After he drops the title and his contract is running up and you think he might be leaving, you let it be and you just let him kind of dwindle in the mid-card. But no, McMahon had him in this angle where he had AJ Styles knock Vince McMahon square in the face and down to the ground. In this new ruthless AJ Styles. And he's obviously going to have a big-time WrestleMania match like he's having a big-time Royal Rumble match with Daniel Bryan for the championship. So why would he give him the world and then he just takes off? I believe what I'm hearing is to be true. AJ Styles will be re-signing with WWE, and most likely within the next 4 to 6 weeks. which is way before WrestleMania. Moving on, guys. When we talk AEW, that was another big news story this week, that Vince McMahon and WWE is trying to match offers and even beat offers from AEW that they're making to talent. And this was a big story, and I don't know why. Of course, I said from day one, AEW is competition to Vince McMahon and WWE. A lot of people didn't want to hear that. The WWE Bubble Boys wanted to be like, no, they're not competition. They haven't even started. Even when they do start, they're not going to be anything. Well, that's cute and cuddly in your world. But the truth is, they actually are going to be competition, guys, because for the first time in a long time, they have a multi-billionaire backing them. When's the last time that happened? Oh yeah, Ted Turner. And we know how that turned out. For 84 weeks, some shit, 83 I believe it was, Ted Turner knocked Vince McMahon on his ass. Then bad decisions started to be abound, and Vince was able to get the upper hand and finally crush them. But the last time you had a billionaire taking on Vince McMahon, that billionaire was kicking the shit out of Vince McMahon. Well, now you have somebody worth almost $8 billion. Way more than Vince McMahon has, I assure you. This was competition from the beginning, but then you have minds like the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes. No matter what you think of them as professional wrestlers, they got good minds for the business. With Cody Rhodes, it's instilled in him. From fucking his father, obviously. But with the Young Bucks, they just got a mind for business in general. You mix them up with Tony Khan, and then his father, and you got all that money. From the beginning, this was going to be something. And then they land Chris Jericho on a multi-year exclusive deal. He could go to Japan and he could do his cruises, but he cannot do anything with WWE or to the like. A 3-year deal with Chris Jericho. You think they're playing around? You think they're not throwing real big cash? So they were absolutely, from the beginning, competition. But now to prove it, WWE's matching and even beating offers already? And I believe that rumor to be reputable and true. But I'm not shocked by it. Because we all knew it was competition, so you knew Vince and WWE and Triple H, they're all looking at it as such. So of course, this isn't something that WWE shouldn't be doing. They're trying to beat offers. I don't know why people are looking at WWE and going, wow, see, they're scared. It has nothing to do with being scared. They are now in competition mode. This is better for all of us. It's better for the individuals within that company, and it's better for the fans. We're already starting to see change on these shows, guys. I know you have the cynical motherfuckers that are trying to say, I see no change at all. No, just because it's not the change you want to see, or it's not leaps and bounds, huge changes yet, you can't watch this past Monday Night Raw and SmackDown the last 2 weeks and not see the little changes that are already starting to be made. With the amount of backstage brawling and backstage segments already. Storylines are actually starting to mean something again. And then you have them actually matching and even trying to beat offers. So this is just upping the game of WWE. I hope to see nothing but even better going forward in 2019. AEW is bringing out nothing but the best already from WWE, and if that means more money for the superstars and that makes them more happy, so be it. But this isn't WWE being scared, this is them in competition mode. Vince loves competition. We're gonna try to beat you before you kick our ass. Now, so far, AEW is landing the knockout blows already, man. Chris Jericho signs with them, you know that stung Vince McMahon. Vince already took Chris Jericho off the opening signature before each show. He was in that, now he's not. I believe he was replaced by Stephanie McMahon or some shit. He was moved to the alumni section immediately. This didn't even take a full 24 hours. So you know that stung Vince a little bit. Chris Jericho says he's had conversations with Vince beforehand, but I'm sure Vince didn't think he was signing a 3-year exclusive fucking deal. But he did. And then you have Triple H working his ass off to try to get the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks have come out and said they've had numerous talks with Triple H. They were offering them the world, in their own words. They could have gotten anything they wanted. Triple H was trying his ass off, and they signed, obviously, with AEW, and they're going to be some executive producers over there. Executive fucking honchos in some fashion. You know that stung Triple H. So far, WWE has taken some punches. To their ego. Maybe not to the company yet. To their ego? Jericho was close. I mean, McMahon was close with Jericho. Triple H was close with this deal and trying to get the Young Bucks. And they both said, thanks, no thanks. That shows you how wrestlers are thinking nowadays. WWE is not the only game in town. People are not satisfied with their position in WWE, and nobody's really happy there anymore. Well, now there's alternatives. And we're not talking TNA alternative. We're talking real shit now, real competition, a real place you can go and be yourself, be who you want to be the character you want to portray, put on the shows you want to put on. Hopefully, if done correctly, everybody wins and everybody's game gets upped. That's what we're hoping for, man. Vince McMahon used to buy up all the territories. Well, now there's not really territories anymore. So Triple H, who's now really in charge, Triple H is buying up all the talent. If you notice, he's trying to sign everybody, but there's only so many roster spots you can have on Raw and SmackDown, and as of now, they still don't even know how to utilize them. On top of that, you throw them all into NXT. NXT is only a 1-hour weekly show with a takeover once every several months and only 5 matches every takeover. So you have big stars just dwindling in obscurity even in NXT. So where's all these stars going? Triple H just wants to eat it all up like Pac-Man. He doesn't give a fuck if they actually get the time of day or if anybody even fucking realizes they're on their rosters. He just wants to eat them all up so nobody else can have them. People are starting to get smart about that and they're going elsewhere, like AEW. So, again, that was a big story, guys. WWE matching and beating offers from AEW, but I'm not shocked. That's what they should be doing. It's not panic mode, it's competition mode. And that, again, better for all of us. Moving on, guys, these are supposed to be rapid fire, but I had a lot to say about that. But moving on with these opening credits and big news topics. Andrade Cien Almas, guys, I gotta go to him next. He's starting to get some momentum. They're starting to give him a push. When you look at his last 13 televised matches, 13, he's got 3 wins and 10 losses. The good news is his last 2 weeks, 2 of those 3 wins were from the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago in the tag match with Samoa Joe, and then last week he beat Rey Mysterio. That's good news, right? We all know the talent that Andrade Cien Almas is. However, here's the downside. Andrade Cien Almas might be his own worst enemy, because apparently he's been telling talents outside of WWE not to join WWE. And it's not as good as everybody makes it out to be. Those are the quote that we're hearing, that he told these individuals. So he's telling people that are thinking about jumping ship and coming over to WWE, Andrade is telling them not to come over because it's not as good as you think it is. Now it's a news story. That's cute if you're just texting them something on a private message or just a private phone call, but that news is now out. You know that's getting the Vince McMahon and company. Is this going to stall Andrade's push? Remains to be seen. We got to see what happens Tuesday, man. But Andrade was starting to get a push. Apparently, he's been talking shit backstage and to his people outside of WWE. Somehow that leaked out. And now Andrade is probably going to be in the doghouse again. We'll find out Tuesday. But they've been giving him a lot of stock these past 2 weeks. That would suck if they take back Andrade's push. But Andrade, what are you thinking, man? Or if you're going to tell people that, make sure it's people that are not going to leak that shit out or tell other people. And it's going to become a news story. But man, when I heard that, I was like, no, this could not come at a worst possible time for Andrade. Again, we'll see what happens. But apparently, again, guys, the news story is he's telling people outside of WWE not to join because it's not a good place to be, basically. What the hell do you think Vince is gonna... How do you think Vince is gonna react to that? Unreal. Speaking of, and we got a big featured scene later with the Revival asking for the releases, supposedly. Let's talk about a couple more people that supposedly asked for their release. This was a big story earlier in the week, and this was Maria and Mike Kanellis. Now, if you blinked, you wouldn't have even known they were on the roster, because they were only here for like a month, and then Maria went and had a baby, and Mike had his addiction issues resurface, and they got big, and so he had to address his addiction issues. Maria was pregnant. I mean, that was their whole contract so far. So, I mean, some people didn't even know they were still on the roster, or they just didn't even care about Mike Kanellis and Maria Kanellis. You could put me in that boat, both. Sometimes I forgot about them, and most of the time I just didn't give a shit about them. But apparently we found out earlier in the week that both asked for their releases from WWE. Well, Maria Kanellis took to her social media within the last 24 hours, and she said, bogus. Once again, the internet being the internet. I never asked for my release from WWE. So Maria is saying 100% false. The interesting side bit here is, at least not of this making of the film, of this filming, so maybe there's been more news since, but as of the making of this filming, guys, Maria has said nothing about Mike asking for his release. Again, as of this filming, Maria just said she never asked. So that's interesting, guys. Did Mike Kanellis ask? And then they just kind of threw Maria into it. Either way, people are not happy with WWE, and that's becoming abundantly clear. Moving on with these rapid-fire news stories for the opening credits, along the same lines, Dolph Ziggler. We're hearing he has now officially asked for his release from WWE. Nothing has been confirmed. If you check his social media, he has changed his name to his real name. So that tells you that for the foreseeable future, he's not going to be in WWE. He does have a comedy tour coming up. So is that why? And he's just taking some time off? It's possible. But where would all these rumors from reputable sources surface from if there was no truth at all? And when Ziggler went to social media to comment on it, he never put them to bed. He never said they were false. He never said they weren't true. All he said about this big news and that he might be going to AEW, he's being released by WWE, all he said was big. And then right next to the word big, meaning big news, obviously, so he puts big, and then right next to that, he puts if true. So he leaves it in the air. He leaves everybody in suspense. Is it true or is it not? Is this just the internet being the internet and there's no truth at all? He's doing a comedy tour and then he's going to come right back? Has he asked for a release and WWE won't let him? Did he even ask for the release? Big, if true. That's what he left on his social media. That was the last post that he left on his social media as of the making of this filming, guys. That's what my research is showing. So Dolph Ziggler as well might be on his way out. All these guys we're hearing come out of the woodwork. I tell you, man, ever since the announcement that there's a new game, another game at least, in town, the original game and the players in that game, they're starting to turn their heads. They're starting to go, maybe the grass is greener on the other side. Remains to be seen. I want to end opening credits, guys, with something phenomenal. It has nothing to do with pro wrestling, in a sense. I mean, today's wrestling is kind of like fucking glorified gymnastics. But this girl that I saw, it went viral on the internet. She's a gymnast. Her name is Kaitlyn Ohashi, I believe. And she did this amazing routine to Michael Jackson's music in the background. And the reason I bring this up, guys, is you guys got to see this if you haven't already. Again, her name's Kaitlyn Ohashi. It's a perfect 10 routine, which rarely happens. And I want you guys to really watch it. And when you watch it, I want you to think professional wrestling and professional wrestlers. Watch Kaitlyn Ohashi's face when she's doing her floor routine in this perfect 10 routine. Watch her facial expressions the entire time. She is loving every single second of what she is doing. She is in that moment. She is not only captivating others, but she's captivating herself. And she is loving it. And it's almost like an out-of-body experience. You can totally tell. And when you do something like that, it is contagious to the audience. So those judges had no choice but to throw up perfect 10s. I want you guys to catch it online, man. Again, her name's Kaitlyn Ohashi. It's a perfect 10 gym routine. You probably have already seen it. It went viral, huge. She's breaking the fucking internet, as the kids call it these days. And I want you, the reason I bring this up is if professional wrestlers went out there and just loved what they did to no end, every night they go out, that ring is their canvas. Like that staging area, that floor was Kaitlyn Ohashi's canvas. That's where she performs her art. Very few professional wrestlers go out there and it looks at home to the viewing audience like they're just having the time of their lives. Maybe Vince McMahon and WWE's locker room atmosphere has made it to a point where they're no longer enjoying themselves. They're no longer having the time of their lives. But they have to remember why they got into pro wrestling to begin with. They love this, and this is all they wanted to do. And you watch Kaitlyn Ohashi's gym routine, and you think, man, if WWE superstars went out there and owned their shit for the time they were in that ring, captivated the world through their facial expressions. You ain't gotta be smiling all the time like you're Finn Balor. You ain't gotta be as sassy as Kaitlyn Ohashi, but if your mannerisms and your facial expressions, your movements, everything was not wasted, it was all for a reason, we would all be captivated and this business would be in a much better place than it is. You hear Sasha Banks all the time talking about, I just want to wrestle. She'll put it on her social media all the fucking time. I just want to wrestle. I love professional wrestling. And then she goes out into the ring, and I tell you guys all the time, what makes Sasha Banks different than anyone else is those facial expressions. Her mannerisms, her movements, her selling. Everything is never a wasted motion or movement. I love that. Kaitlyn Ohashi-esque. When you love what you do so much, you get what Kaitlyn Ohashi did in that gymnastics routine. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know anything about gymnastics, but I know she crushed it in her profession. I do know about professional wrestling, and even though today's pro wrestling is basically glorified gymnastics, I do know that if you bring that type of commitment and love and passion and desire to what you are doing in that ring and in your promos and in your storylines, we would be captivated. When you love what you do so passionately, everybody, the world can see it. When you love something so much and you get to do it, the world takes notice. I haven't seen that in pro wrestling in so long. I miss that. You got this gymnast, this little, is she even 5 foot tall? I don't even know. This little shrimp, and she's crushing it out there, and her face is saying, I own this shit. This was a woman who was body shamed throughout her young life. She wasn't as thin as other women, as other girls in her profession, in her sport. She wasn't what everybody else was. She wanted to have the junk food from time to time and not be criticized or judged about it. And she wrote about it, man. She wrote about it in poems. She wrote about it in a book. I researched this girl after I saw that routine, man. It's incredible, her story. And she said, no, I won't be what anybody else wants me to be. I'm going to be my own person. I'm going to be as thick as I want to be, and I'm going to own this shit. And she went out there, and she got perfect tens, and she owned that shit, and she captivated the world, and she did it her way. The professional wrestling world, especially WWE, can learn something from Kaitlyn Ohashi, I believe me. And I assure you, if you watch that routine and you're not captivated by that, check the old pulse. Pro wrestlers need to remember why they're in this business. And when they go out there and perform, find that passion and love again. Thank you guys for letting me go on that spiel, because that was very passionate of me to say that, because I was passionately watching Kaitlyn Ohashi passionately do that floor routine. Unfucking real. Let's go on with some featured scenes, guys. Becky Lynch, Alexa Bliss, and Mandy Rose's sexual segments. The Revival on their way out. And the whole professional world, for some reason, is shocked by this. We talk about all this over the next hour and a half. Right now. On the BC's Pro Wrestling Amplified podcast, only the 3rd ever episode, and you guys are all along for the ride, and I could not be more thankful. Let's do this shit. Scene 1. The Man or Not. Action. So, for scene 1, I want to pop off with a big story right out of the gates, and that's Becky Lynch in a scene that I like to title The Man or Not. Because this is a situation and a topic that has been polarizing for a full week now. The stories really started to break a week ago, and they just gained traction through SmackDown Live this week. But if you really think about it, the Amplified Man has made this a story from the beginning. But a lot of people didn't want to take what I was saying and accept it for the truth that it was. Not that they didn't believe the Amplified Man, but because it didn't fit their agenda. It didn't fit into the world that they wanted to believe in, which was that Becky Lynch still has the same momentum she had before Survivor Series. Becky Lynch is still the flag bearer of WWE. Becky Lynch is still red hot, white hot, to the fucking touch, burning up like she was before Survivor Series. But the Amplified Man said, that's not the case. The Amplified Man said, that's not true. The Amplified Man said, that's not factual. Because the truth is, the full month leading up to Survivor Series and that invasion angle, the Monday before Survivor Series, Becky Lynch was white hot. She was the biggest thing in pro wrestling at that point. Even I'll admit that shit. It turned somebody who wasn't a full-fledged Becky Lynch fan into a Becky Lynch fan. And then what happened on that Monday happened, and Nia Jax blasted the face of Becky Lynch. And all was done for Becky Lynch at that point for Survivor Series. She was then pulled from the match. She was on the sideline for several weeks. When she came back, she was just sitting by ringside watching other females compete for a full month after Nia Jax took out Becky Lynch and stopped her momentum. Becky Lynch was an afterthought. When she finally has her return match, she loses the strap at TLC. Another thing I said the Amplified Man said from the beginning, I said, was going to be detrimental to her momentum, because it was already starting to change, and not for the better. And nobody really wanted to take the Amplified Man seriously. Oh, BC, she'll be fine, man. She's been gone a few weeks. She's gonna get that momentum back. She'll be main eventing WrestleMania, and we're all gonna give a shit. We're all gonna have the same goosebumps as before her Survivor Series matchup with Ronda Rousey, or supposed match that never ended up transpiring thanks to Nia Jax's carelessness and recklessness. But that's what fucking happened, isn't it? At the fucking moment that we saw Becky Lynch bloodied and she invaded Raw, and that was her epic, iconic moment, that Steve Austin WrestleMania 13 moment, when Austin was in the sharpshooter and Bret Hart was about to fucking make him tap out, but Austin refused and he passed out bloodied. This was Becky's moment, iconic. And in that same night, the momentum halted. And Becky Lynch has never been able to get it back since. Now, you can blame that on just bad timing, right? Everything was going so fucking flawless for Becky Lynch. The momentum, the tide, the wave was at an all-time high, and then it all got popped right at a fucking sudden stop. So you can blame just the timing, but you also have to blame booking. Because while she was out for those couple of weeks up front, they barely made her relevant. They made her an afterthought. And when she came back, she was not relevant at all. She sat by ringside and she watched other female competitors get it on. She couldn't even get the headset, the microphone, to do commentary, which is what we know she's awesome at, and she can really blow up people on the microphone or on social media. But Vince never allowed her to do such. So the booking right out of the gates was hurtful. And who can forget the fucking time where she handpicked Charlotte to take on Ronda at Survivor Series as her replacement, and then she hugged Charlotte. But this was supposed to be the new badass Becky. And now you're hugging the female you said this was all about? You're sick of being in her shadow? You can't stand her now? And now you're hugging her. That was a booking botch. And then, when she's in the promo, when she returned with Charlotte, and Charlotte said, "Becky, shut your mouth." And Becky Lynch shut her mouth and put her head down like a lost, abused puppy. Booking botch number 2. that went off the rails in the wrong direction. Then she drops the championship and everybody thinks, oh, okay, this is going to set up a Royal Rumble victory. And then she'll main event WrestleMania. See, BC, this is a blessing in disguise. Don't worry, man. While all the while everybody else was telling me not to worry, I was listening to the reaction that Becky was getting when she comes through the curtain every week. And it was getting smaller and smaller, lower and lower when you heard the crowd reaction. You still get the Becky chants more than the others, mostly anyway. You can still hear that shit, but it's nothing compared to what she was getting before she got derailed by Nia Jax before Survivor Series. That's the truth. Her momentum was going down, guys. Her crowd reaction was going down. And you guys were telling me, don't worry, WrestleMania is what it's all about. But if somebody keeps on falling down, crowd reaction-wise, and the booking is tragic and horrible, then by WrestleMania, am I going to want to see Becky Lynch in the main event? If by then she's just another 50-50 personnel, another 50-50 wrestler, why do I not need to see her now in the main event? I could see anybody else in the main event. I don't need to see women in the main event just because they're women. I needed to see 2 women in the main event because that's what the world wanted to see more than any other match. Now I can't be so sure. Booking has been horrendous for Becky Lynch. And all I got when I tried to speak those facts were people trying to tell me the smaller things. BC, how can you say she's not as relevant, not as hot as she once was, when I heard people on Raw even chanting Becky? Yeah, I heard the same 37 people. So fucking what? You could get everybody at the local supermarket chanting Becky Lynch for 2 hours straight. That's not gonna mean she's still white hot in this business. And then you have another fucking couple of dipshits. But her Royal Rumble access meet and greet sold out in fucking 90 seconds, BC. Okay, look at the fucking meet and greet roster. Who the fuck is larger than life on that shit? Nobody. Becky Lynch was the closest we had at that moment when those tickets went on sale, the closest we had to somebody we actually give a shit about. That doesn't mean it's going to translate to ratings. That doesn't mean it's going to translate to attendance and asses in the seats at the arenas. That doesn't mean it's going to bring in casual fans and mainstream media fans. And I know this because I've been doing my research. While you're talking about 90-second sellouts and meet and greets, and a few people on Monday Night Raw chanting her name, I'm listening to the reaction on her own show. I'm listening once the bell sounds and watching the crowd's enthusiasm during a Becky match or post-match. Her social media attention garnered. I'm looking at her tweets and the relevance of what she used to be tweeting and how much important they were than they are now. I'm looking at shit like that and I'm telling you, factually, she's not as hot as she once was. That's not saying we don't love Becky. That's not saying it's Becky's fault. I'm blaming this squarely, first and foremost, aside from Nia Jax, who we know that's her fault, but I'm blaming this on Vince McMahon in booking. Because from the moment she returned, they booked her like an afterthought. But on top of that, guys, not just booking her like an afterthought, this seems like a methodical plan to push Becky Lynch to the side. So this whole first scene dedicated to the title, The Man or Not, stems from the story that we found out about a week ago, and that's Vince McMahon now has second thoughts. He has reservations on if he can trust Becky Lynch as the real man. Trust Becky Lynch to carry WrestleMania, or even give her the torch and give her main storylines. Why is Vince McMahon second-guessing himself now? Simple. Vince McMahon tarnished Becky Lynch on his own accord. This was a sabotage from within by the creator, by the head honcho, by the owner himself. Look at what he did when Becky went to the sideline. And she was the fucking afterthought and Charlotte took her place at Survivor Series. What did Vince do? Vince turned Charlotte loose like he once set Becky Lynch loose. And the same thing that captivated us when he set Becky Lynch loose and Becky Lynch turned into that ruthless Becky Lynch and she went vicious and we saw a new side of her. Not fully heel, but a new side. And it worked. And it captivated the audience and it garnered our attention. So what did Vince do the moment Becky Lynch got hurt and Charlotte filled in for her at Survivor Series? Vince said, hey, it worked for her. Let's steal that thunder and let's put it in with Charlotte Flair. And what happened at Survivor Series, guys? Charlotte did the exact same thing Becky did, and guess what? It worked again. But what that does, you guys don't think about this. Subconsciously, in the viewers' minds, in the fans' minds, that lowers the stock of Becky now. Because now we have some other person now, some other women, some other fucking wrestling talent that is doing the same thing. They turned ruthless. They turned vicious. And it worked whether you like Charlotte or not. Listen to the cheers she was getting that night and then from here on out. From there on out. Charlotte's been more relevant than she's ever fucking been. Love her or hate her, that new vicious Charlotte is what she should have been all along. We've been saying she should have been a heel all along because that fits her better. But you're going to do that weeks after you just let Becky Lynch have that character? That's sabotaging Becky for your princess, Charlotte. That's what Vince did. That's what Vince did. Consciously, not subconsciously. Vince knew exactly what he was doing. And again, it lowers the stock of Becky. But we didn't stop there. Ronda Rousey comes in at TLC. And she dumps over fucking Becky Lynch, Charlotte, everybody. And Asuka ends up winning that strap. And we see a new side of Ronda Rousey. But she's not exactly heel, but we saw a new aggressive side to Ronda Rousey. More ruthless, more vicious. She took to social media and she said, you ain't gonna see the nice girl anymore. No longer is that who you're gonna see. If this is how they're gonna play, I'm gonna be the fucking king, the queen of this fucking game. So we saw the new side of Ronda. That's great for Ronda now. So you have both of Vince's princesses. You have Ronda, you have Charlotte, but Becky Lynch is losing stock again. Now everybody's doing this in-between turn. Not really heel, but you're seeing the new vicious side of them. So Vince didn't stop there. He took the Becky Lynch character and he said, let's take it to the men now. And in the same 24-hour period on Raw, you had Triple H demanding that Seth Rollins turn more vicious, more ruthless, and he wants to see that old school Seth Rollins. 24 hours later on SmackDown, Vince McMahon is in AJ Styles' face doing the same monologue to Styles that Triple H just did to Seth Rollins. And McMahon is telling AJ Styles, I want to see the ruthless side of you, the vicious side. The I don't give two shits side of you, AJ Styles. So what happens the following week? In a 24-hour period, you had Seth Rollins showing fucking Triple H that he is still ruthless and vicious, and he attacks Bobby Lashley backstage, and they're brawling all over the place. And then you have a no-holds-barred match later that night with Seth Rollins. And then 24 hours later, AJ Styles jumping Daniel Bryan up at the staging area, showing his vicious side. Not heels, but vicious, aggressive. They don't give two shits about what people think about them. That was Becky Lynch's whole gimmick. That's what captivated us, and now we're seeing it with everybody. In-betweeners. Charlotte, Ronda Rousey, Seth Rollins, AJ Styles. So what it does, again, subconsciously or consciously to the viewing audience, to the fans, is it lowers Becky's stock. What's so special about Becky anymore is what fans are going to ask. We're seeing it with everybody now. Everyone's more vicious. Everybody's showing that more aggressive side, that almost heelish side. So why do we have to love Becky anymore? That's what I'm telling you guys. Of course we love Becky, and of course people like me can give you 100 reasons why we should love Becky, probably more than 90% of the roster. But the casuals, the mainstream media fans, and a lot of the diehard fans, that's how we're subconsciously looking at Becky Lynch now. There's no reason to give a shit about her any more than we are, which is even keel again. Everything that captivated us about Becky Lynch is being diminished, tarnished, and sabotaged by Vince McMahon. I just gave you guys so many facts to back that up. So that is the real reason Vince McMahon is having reservations of giving Becky Lynch the torch. That's the real reasons that Becky Lynch might not main event WrestleMania. Or at least definitely not in a one-on-one match. If she does, it's probably going to be a triple threat or a fatal four-way. That's the reasons. Vince doesn't know if he can trust that Becky Lynch will sell tickets and garner attention because he booked her like trash. And that's bullshit. Even when she got injured, you could have rode that wave of momentum sky high. There was no ceiling, actually. You could have I can fucking speak. You could have rode that wave of success to new limits. Never before reached before. You chose not to, and then, to make matters worse, you chose to take what made Becky special and spread it around to everyone. Spread the wealth. Like a fucking socialist, you take the pie and you just give it around. You spread it to everybody. Everybody gets a fucking turn at Becky's character. And then you wonder. Don't take it from me. You can hate me all you want for a million reasons. I'm the bad guy, the boogeyman. I'm the asshole. I'm cool with that. But if you hate me for dropping facts, then you're the delusional fucking idiot, because all you need to do is go back and do your research. Everything that I'm telling you, listen for yourselves. Go back and listen to the crowd reactions Becky was getting pre-Survivor Series, and then you look at the reaction she's getting post-Survivor Series. It's night and day. It's light and dark. Two totally different spectrums. Trust me, I've done my research. I've listened to the reactions. I've watched the crowd during the matches, during the promos. Becky Lynch, no doubt. It's what we're clinging to. So she's no doubt one of the top stars right now in professional wrestling, not just WWE. I'm not saying she has no momentum. I'm not saying she's not one of the brightest stars. What I'm saying is that Nia Jax fucking punch knocked her momentum right out of the fucking stratosphere. And not in a good way. She was riding it, and we were all along for the ride. People want to know why we compared her to Steve Austin. You can't compare Becky to Austin. If you're looking at it from that one-sided view, nobody would compare to Austin then. You would be correct. What we're trying to say is if you look at the trajectory that she was on, it's Austin-esque. She was around for a while. Nobody was taking her seriously. It was a stale character like the ringmaster, Steve Austin. They turn her loose. They make her more vicious. They let her roll with whatever she wants to do, just like they let Stone Cold do. She has that iconic bloody moment where she really had her standout defining moment, just like Austin had at WrestleMania 13. Becky Lynch had on that invasion angle when they invaded Raw before Survivor Series. What she was saying on Twitter, her words, her promos that she was dropping, everything was captivating us. That's why you had those comparisons. But what Stone Cold had that Becky Lynch doesn't have right now, Stone Cold had good booking. Could you imagine if weeks after Stone Cold did the beer truck thing, if fucking Vince McMahon had Bob Holly come out in a beer truck and start spraying people? Could you imagine if he had Billy Gunn or Road Dogg come in with a cement truck and do the fucking filling of the Corvette with cement like Stone Cold did? Could you imagine if he had Billy Gunn and Road Dogg do that? Could you imagine if he had Ivory or Molly Holly come in and fucking with a monster truck and run over The Rock and Triple H's limousines like Stone Cold was doing? The Stone Cold character wouldn't be as epic because everybody's doing that fun shit. That fun booking. No, only Stone Cold did that shit. And that rose his stock. Made him special and unique. Everybody's doing the Becky Lynch now. And now everybody upped their game on social media too. Everyone's a badass on social media all of a sudden and trying to come up with quick-witted responses. Those mic drop moments. I look at it as everybody's copying the originator, Becky. But that's not how the wrestling fans are going to look at it. Casuals, mainstream media make a big part of the shows, the attendance. And guys, the response is not there like it once was. So how can we correct this? Simple. Becky is still the same Becky that we love. We need creative in booking, more importantly Vince, to stand and get behind her 110%. If they do that, we could get that Becky Lynch that was white hot going into Survivor Series, we could get that back. There's still enough time. And if they did it correctly, then I give a fuck about watching Becky Lynch in a main match at Mania, and maybe even the main event. But if you don't make fans like me give a fuck, then why do I want to see them in the main event? Just because they're females? I can say right now, as I knew I would, because I said it weeks ago and months ago, and I ended up being correct. I'll speak for myself, but I know I'm speaking for so many. I am way, astronomically, and that wouldn't even do it fucking justice, less in the mood and less excited to see Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch than I was at Survivor Series. Let me put that in other words. I was way more intrigued to watch that match at Survivor Series. So pumped up. Goosebumps. And now, not even in the same league. I could care less about Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey right now. Whether it's at WrestleMania, Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, next week on SmackDown, next week on Raw, it doesn't matter. Tomorrow night in my back fucking yard, it doesn't matter. Friday night on 5th Avenue, Saturday night in the Statue of Liberty, Sunday night on Staten Island. It doesn't matter. I don't give a fuck right now. They're gonna need to make me and fans like me, and then the casuals and the mainstream media give a fuck about this match for Mania. And if it's a triple threat, you're gonna have to really sell me on how it became a triple threat. How the fuck you gonna do that at the Rumble? 2 winners like Lex Luger and Bret Hart in the early 90s? They're both gonna win? Or is Charlotte gonna weasel her way in on the February pay-per-view 4 weeks before Mania? That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. That match at Survivor Series would have catapulted Becky Lynch into a whole new stratosphere. Win or lose, it wouldn't have mattered. And then we would have been seeing Becky Lynch on her trajectory to the main event of Mania in some big fucking match. Because she would have definitely, it wouldn't have been a decision by Vince. She would have been holding that torch. But then she gets knocked out by Nia, and then all the bad luck that could have happened for Becky happened. Vince started spreading around the wealth of her character. Again, if Becky never got injured, not only does she wrestle Ronda at Survivor Series, but then Vince wouldn't have had the idea to let everybody become more vicious and ruthless. And in-betweener. Becky Lynch was tarnished, diminished, and sabotaged from within. That is the real reason Vince now doesn't know if he can trust Becky with the top spot. He did it himself. So my advice for Vince, if you truly want to back Becky, all you got to do is go back to the beginning on the drawing board and give her the push you were giving her. Or Vince, am I calling you out on the bullshit and exposing you in the fact that you never wanted to give Becky Lynch that spot? And when she got injured, that was your perfect opportunity to take that character and put it on your Princess Charlotte. And then everyone else afterwards. Again, we all love Becky Lynch. Anybody going, BC, I don't know what you're talking about. I love Becky still, man. And she's still hot, man. She's still got the momentum. You're right on all accords. I'm with you. I love her too. She does still have momentum. She is still hot in this business. I don't disagree with any of it. That's not the point. The story at the beginning of the week and just gained traction was Vince no longer knows if he can trust Becky with the top spot anymore. Because of reaction and attendance and ticket sales and fucking ratings and every other fucking spectrum you can think of that Vince was looking at, he's now gonna blame Becky. That's the point of the story. We all love Becky. We know she's still hot in the business and has momentum, but it's nowhere near where it once was. And now Vince is questioning himself. Well, the point of all of this is that if he just goes back to where it all started and give her the boost, the push that she deserves, that she once had, let her have the character by herself, then she's gonna be fine. She's gonna blow up again, and we're all gonna be invested like we were pre-Survivor Series. That's the point. Make Becky great again. How about that, to put it in fucking today's societal terms? Make Becky great again. I'm watching. her stock go down. I'm listening and I'm watching, viewing this shit as her momentum goes down, guys. And then you got people that don't want to believe it and they just go, I heard a reaction, BC. I thought people were pretty loud, BC. That's not the point. People are going to cheer. People will be loud for her. The point is, why did it fall off so drastically from before Survivor Series? That shouldn't have happened. When Austin got injured, he became even more popular because booking started doing all the cool shit. The Corvette and the cement truck, the beer truck, the monster trucks, getting arrested all the time with the feud with Vince. That's when the fun picked up when he was injured. Becky got injured, and they did everything they possibly could have done to make her irrelevant. I'm not saying she might not get the main event at Mania. Are we gonna really give a fuck like we did at Survivor Series when she was gonna have that match with Ronda? Right now, the answer is crystal clear. Hell no, not even close. Leaps and bounds different from Survivor Series. That needs a change. The good news is there's enough time. We still have another week before Royal Rumble even. Will they do it? Who the fuck knows, man? We are talking about Vince and WWE. The man or not the man? That's in the eye of the beholder. I hope that we can once again look at her in the highest regards again. Not spread the wealth, but give her the push and the character that was hers originally before we spread it around, had everyone copy her. Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch was done dirty. There's no other way to end this scene. I'm going to end it with that. Becky Lynch was done dirty. What happens from here on out is going to be a tall order for Vince and WWE to correct, but it can be corrected. Otherwise, you ain't going to see Becky Lynch in no WrestleMania main event, guys, if Vince can't correct this shit. And if we do see them in the main event and Vince doesn't correct this shit and he still decides to go with that, don't be surprised if the fans are disengaged during that main event. Again, you can hate the messenger all you want. This channel has always been dedicated to delivering the facts. And I'm doing no different now in this podcast than I did in the first 2 episodes of BC's Pro Wrestling Amplified podcast. I'm just spitting truth and dropping facts. And sometimes that's unsettling. And sometimes that's hard to take in. Because we love Becky Lynch. But these are facts, guys. What happens in the next several weeks for Becky Lynch's character and her storylines is probably some of the most important of her career. And we'll all be fucking sitting back and watching on and hoping for the best. That's it. On to scene number 2. A lot of show still to go. Scene 2. Sex sells. Action! So scene 2, simply titled, Sex Sells. That's what we're calling this scene. And it's no secret that some of the hottest news stories this week coming out of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live was the segment with Alexa Bliss and the PA, the production assistant, walking in on her in the dressing room while she's getting changed, and the Mandy Rose segment from Tuesday SmackDown where she tried to lure Jimmy Uso into her hotel room so she can set him up and hopefully break up the marriage of Naomi and Jimmy. Those were the 2 big scenes for reasons that had nothing to do with in-ring competition, but everything to do with the entertainment that we are watching. Whether you liked it or not, that type of entertainment, that was the talk of the town for the whole week. Alexa Bliss, Mandy Rose. Now, I'm not going to go on a spiel or a rant about this because I already did that on the Tuesday SmackDown review and reaction video. If you guys didn't check that out, go ahead and check it out. It's live on the channel. It's been live for several days now. That I believe the last video I put up was that SmackDown live reaction and review video. And I spent the whole first 20 minutes just blowing up at motherfuckers that are calling this anything other than the entertainment. Whether you like that form of entertainment or not, doesn't fucking matter. It's entertainment for the masses. One of two things was going to happen. People were going to show up for this type of entertainment. The numbers were going to be produced, and the numbers were going to be backed up that people do want to see this, or the numbers were not going to show up. The numbers would not back up that people want to see this. And people would be repulsed by this, the majority. One of two things. People are going to love this shit and watch and tune in, and the numbers were going to be huge, or the numbers were not going to be huge. People were going to be repulsed. People were not going to show up. People were not going to take to social media and YouTube and rewatch it. Or they heard about it and they're like, no, I'm repulsed. I'm not even going to give that a glance. If they didn't catch it the first time and they heard about it and they're repulsed, obviously they're not going to go and watch it. Or they heard about it and they actually went and watched it. Because they did want to see it. Because that is intriguing, isn't it? That is something out of the norm. It is something different. So what ended up happening, right? This isn't a rant about the people, the men, and I'll use that term loosely, that were repulsed by a beautiful girl, a beautiful woman, showing some skin. And by the way, as I said in Tuesday's video, it was no more, or should I say no less than what they wear in the ring with their ring outfit, their ring gear. Alexa Bliss was still fully covered. All you really saw in that shot was her arm. Maybe a little back. And with Mandy Rose, all you saw was some legs. She had her boots off. But as far as underwear goes, that's basically her ring gear. Her lingerie up top was longer than her ring gear. But yet people flipped out because they were repulsed. It was gross, raunchy television because the storyline called for a little bit of sexuality, a little bit of seducing, some seductive nature. Oh no, can't have that. It's okay in television shows. It's okay in movies. It's okay in commercials, on Broadway, on any form of entertainment you can think of, but not in wrestling. Some people said, that's not wrestling, to which I said in that video Tuesday, it's not. Listen up, dipshit, if you remember the Attitude Era, which was the biggest era ever for pro wrestling, that's exactly what was in those pro wrestling shows. Women have always been a part of the storyline in a sexual nature from the beginning of time. Just really exploded during that Attitude Era, and the ratings and the numbers backed it up that people wanted to see that. So now dipshits are going around saying, yeah, but times have changed, and for the women to be taken seriously, you can no longer have any female in a seductive or sexual storyline. Says who? What the fuck? So let's see if they were right. Again, I'm not going to rant on it because I already did that. You guys can go back to that video earlier in the week and catch it. I think the thumbnail simply says, this is sexy, deal with it. And it's a photo of Mandy Rose sitting in the hotel room chair. So that's how you guys can easily identify that. Maybe at the end of this video, I'll have it up so you guys can just click it too. We'll see. But that's going to be the rant and raving. What this scene is about, this is the aftermath. I made that early Wednesday morning. Now here we are the weekend, right? You guys are catching this hopefully early Sunday morning or on Sunday. So several days have passed. Now we get to see, did people show up? Did fans tune in? Were the numbers big? Was the buzz worth it for WWE? Does sex sell, especially in WWE? Or did the majority of the people just find it raunchy, gross, and nonsensical? And it's taking the women's evolution and women's wrestling back 10 steps. I got the numbers. You don't have to wait any longer. The Amplified Man does his research. You guys know that's what this whole podcast is about. It's not just opinion. This is about factual numbers. Was the Amplified Man right on Wednesday morning when I said sex sells and I loved what I saw Monday and Tuesday? It helps make a complete television show, and at the end of the day, that's a professional wrestling television show. I understand we can see great wrestling from great superstars. I can also see great wrestling from great superstars down at the local bingo hall. That doesn't mean they're going to put on a complete great television show for 3 hours on Monday nights and 2 hours on SmackDown Tuesday nights. I need a complete television show. So I got the numbers. You guys want to start off with Alexa Bliss? You go to WWE's official YouTube page. I can't make this shit up. This is legit. It is their biggest numbers that they pulled on their YouTube page in quite some time. 5.5 million views. 5.5 million clicks on Alexa Bliss getting dressed in the locker room when the PA came in with her latte. 5.5 million. The next one closest to that was actually from that same program, and that was Braun Strowman lifting up the limousine and flipping it over. That huge stunt is over 1 million clicks away from Alexa. Alexa rode off, and that's just as of now. These numbers, guys, are from Friday afternoon. So you guys are catching this now on this weekend. I'm making this video this weekend, but I got these numbers Friday afternoon. So by now, they probably changed a little bit, but I'm guessing Alexa's just went up. I'm guessing Mandy's just went up. But Alexa Bliss has currently, as of Friday afternoon, 5.5 million views. The next one in line was Braun Strowman at 3.9 million. That was a huge stunt. And they couldn't even get to 4 million at the time of my research anyway. Maybe now they're at 4 million, but they're still nowhere near Alexa Bliss, I assure you. Alexa might be at 6 million by now. 5.5 million. And if you guys are wondering what the heck is the next closest to even Braun Strowman, you're going to have to wait till SmackDown, where Mandy Rose ended up delivering. We'll get to that in a minute, though. We'll stick on Alexa for now because I want to stay with this 5.5 million, which is by far not just for Monday Night Raw, but for WWE's YouTube page in general. For the longest time, that is the highest amount of clicks and views they have gotten in a long time. And it's all thanks to that one 30-second clip. Let me put this in perspective. The 6-woman tag match from that same Monday Night Raw show that everyone says, oh, that's taking the Evolution back. But if you think about it, and this is going to be hard to swallow because you guys know I love women's wrestling. I love Sasha Banks. I love Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, even Becky Lynch, Asuka. Down in NXT, man, my gals down there. You're talking about Io Shirai and Kairi Sane, Bianca Belair, Shayna Baszler, Evilise, who's not even in NXT or in the WWE bubble. But I'll be the first to admit, they have not produced the numbers. They got their own pay-per-view. They got main events on pay-per-views. They've gotten main events on Raw and SmackDown. They've been in main storylines. And the numbers continue to fall and drop. Of course, you can blame that on Vince. Of course, you can blame that on booking. Blame that on creative. I always blame it on all of them. Everybody gets a piece of the blame pie. But if I'm blaming everybody, you also gotta look in the mirror and say the women have not produced the numbers that they were hoping for. We've seen epic matches with the females on pay-per-views and on television. Epic storylines, we've seen it. They just don't bring in the numbers. So you want change, you claim you want a better television product and all of that. Well, we're gonna still get the women's wrestling, but Vince is forced to do other things with the females. Bring in storylines. That's why you're seeing seductive storylines now, and a little bit more sexual. There's only 2 genders, a male and a female. What the fuck do you think's gonna happen? You have to have a female sexualized at times. It's gonna have to happen in a storyline. Back in the day, they had Val Venus. He was a porn star. You didn't see me as a man going, what the fuck, man? This is stupid. I don't want to see Val. Val Venus was the shit. He was always walking around in towels and shit. That didn't mean people were gay or that real men didn't like the shit or they wanted it off the television. We knew what it was. It was a storyline and it was a character. It was fun. It was awesome. Nowadays, we can't have any women in a sexual role because it's taking the women's evolution, not just in WWE, but in the world. It's bringing the women back 100 years or to the beginning of time. No, women can still be sexy. They can be in sexy TV spots, sexy movie scenes. Diane Lane is a famous actress. She did that movie Unfaithful. How many times has fucking men watched Unfaithful? Probably a million fucking times. But it doesn't get away from the fact that she's an awesome actress. People don't look at her as just a dumb bimbo, a slut, a whore. No! They look at Diane Lane as an awesome actress who did a lot of nude sex scenes. Because it told the story. That was her character. And people loved those movies and definitely loved those scenes. It was captivating. It was entertaining to people. Doesn't mean they were fucking perverts. Doesn't mean immediately they're gonna hit the bathroom with their phone, and Pornhub is now on their phone, and they're in the bathroom like, oh shit, Alexa Bliss sent me here. No! Characters, storyline, seductive, sexual. You can have that in your television show. It's not gonna take any movement back to the beginning of time. The numbers were not there for women's wrestling. They're just not. So Vince has to offer, he's still gonna keep it, obviously. They're gonna still be main focal points. But Vince has to add other elements into his television show. He has to. And if shit is obviously selling, if people want to see it, why would you deprive people of that? 5.5 million. Now getting back to my original point here. Nikki Cross, Bayley, and Natalya took on the Riot Squad that same night. Their total clicks on WWE's YouTube page, 473,000 was their max by Friday afternoon. 473,000 to Alexa Bliss's 5.5 million. Think about that. Okay, how about a bigger match that you're just saying, oh, that's a Riot Squad redundancy match. How about Sasha Banks and Ronda Rousey tagging up? Sure, it was against Nia Jax and Tamina, but it's Rousey and Banks versus Tamina and Nia Jax. Surely that's going to do more than 473,000, right? Sure it did. Just not a lot more. 486,000 clicks on WWE's YouTube page for Sasha and Ronda. 486,000, even with their awesome promo after the match. It was only able to garner people coming back to that website and watching 486,000 to Alexa Bliss's 5.5 million. If you added both women's matches together, guys, it would not even equal 1 million views. Alexa, more than 5 times that son of a bitch, and by now it's probably 6 times, easily. The numbers spoke volumes for what people want. What is your excuse? 5.5 million pervs. 5.5 million beard necks. 5.5 million assholes. 5.5 million people bringing back the women's movements. SmackDown, let's go over there. Let's go to Mandy Rose. You want to know what she pulled in for SmackDown Live? 2.2 million views and clicks. She more than doubled any Raw match that happened on Monday. If you combined Sasha and Ronda's match with Nikki Cross's debut and Bayley and Natalya versus the Riot Squad, if you combined it, that didn't even equal 1 million. Mandy Rose, single-handedly with her storyline with Jimmy Uso and Naomi, 2.2 million. Let me put that in perspective. You guys claim Becky Lynch is the hottest thing in the world. Still, don't worry about her momentum, BC. She's a main eventer, BC, of WrestleMania. But her match with Peyton Royce only got 398,000 people. That's a combination of people who didn't see SmackDown, wanted to see Becky Lynch versus Peyton, and people that just wanted to come back and watch it. They weren't even able to hit 400,000 as of my research of Friday afternoon. 398K. To Mandy Rose's 2.2 million. The other one was, I got one for you. When Jimmy Uso got the hotel room key, this didn't even have Mandy Rose in it. The storyline alone of him receiving the key got 419,000 views. That was more than the Becky Lynch match. More than Becky's match. Asuka versus Billie Kay, 286,000 views. If you put together Asuka's match with Becky Lynch's match, they brought in 5, 6, we'll go, not even 700,000. Not even 700,000 views and clicks between Asuka and Becky Lynch's. Not even 700,000. And you have Mandy Rose's storyline collecting over 3 times that at 2.2 million. The numbers are in. Whether you liked it or hated it, whether you loved it or didn't, sex sells, and in the WWE, it is no different. It adds an extra layer of entertainment. You have these weird, I call them creepers. They're creepy to me. Grown men. I'm not even talking about the females that have a problem with this right now. That's a separate subject for another day. But for men, I could speak about men. And being in my 30s, I can tell you, I'm at that age where still young enough, not quite old enough, but old enough, if that makes sense. So I'm still young enough, but I'm old enough. I'm right in that in-between phase that I can see both aspects of where you're at. I can see where the 17, 18, 19-year-old teenager is. I can see where the 48, 49-year-old man is. Right? And obviously everywhere in between. And any man who says, any man from the age of 16 years old all the way to fucking 66 years old, I think, speak for you when I say, or about other fucking men that don't like this at all, call it raunchy, call it gross, call it disgusting. I can speak for the fucking real man who looks at people like that, honestly, and I could say, you guys are creepers, man. You guys repulse and disgust and are gross to us. Cause what the fuck are you... How does that... It's a beautiful girl who wasn't even... They're more naked in their wrestling gear. They are more naked when they're in the ring. They were way more covered up in these segments. All you could say for Mandy is she took her boots off and she's showing some leg, and that disgusts you? Or it's because she was being used in a seductive storyline? But the movies are still having that. The television shows are still having that because that's real life. That's entertainment, but it's real life. But WWE is not allowed to do that. Your standards when it comes to women are you want them completely covered up. You don't want them being sexual in any way. And you don't feel comfortable talking about sex in any way. You gotta be the most I hope that you are just what I think you are, and you're just some lame-ass dude who doesn't have a girlfriend and most likely never had a real girlfriend. That's what I'm thinking you are. At least I'm hoping. Because if you do have a girlfriend, she has gotta be the saddest, most depressed person alive. That you are her boyfriend. You are her husband. You are her significant other. You gotta be awesome in bed. In the bedroom, you must be dynamite for her. You must be the lamest piece of shit. You're probably one of those dudes that just lays on her. Or just gets off in 3 minutes and doesn't even please her. Because you don't even know about sex. You don't want to talk about it. You're so fucking... You don't know what you're doing as it is. That probably sets a block about sex in your head. So now in your head, you don't even want to discuss sex. You don't even want to think about it. Because then it brings you back into your own head and you know you suck at it. And you know you're not pleasing any female in real life. That's what it's gotta be. I have to overanalyze this. Because there's no other reason under the sun that a grown man, straight anyway, a straight grown man, and on that video Tuesday, I had gay men come out on my video and say, BC, I'm openly gay, and I had no problem with that segment. I actually thought it was awesome. It added another layer of entertainment. So I could find no fucking room at all for a straight man to be that repulsed by a little bit of a sexual storyline. A character A character playing someone a little bit more sexual. And you got a problem with that. You forgot you're watching characters. You forgot you're watching a television show, and you're still in a kayfabe bubble where it's just about the wrestling. Where's the revival? Why isn't the 205 Live guys main eventing WrestleMania? They can do flips and dives. They could do today's wrestling. I don't want the TV show part. I don't want the entertainment. I just want the flips and dives type. That's entertaining to me. There's promotions for that, buddy. There's other programs for that. That's not WWE. If you think that's what it is and that's what you want, go somewhere else. I want the complete package of entertainment. I said it from day one, back in the 80s, into the early 90s, with the Hulk Hogans, the Macho Mans, the Ultimate Warriors, the Roddy Pipers, that time period, that era. Even on Superstars of Wrestling and all those TV shows early Saturday morning, you didn't get match after match after match after match. It wasn't all about the wrestling. You were setting up storylines. You were creating good feuds. And then at the pay-per-views, you would get the ultimate payoffs. The blow-off, it's called. That's where all the wrestling happened on the card. The TV shows were just supposed to build up characters and storylines. And you didn't like it because it was too sexy. It was sexualized. It was scandalous. And you could tell these grown men, supposedly, I use that term real loosely, they just don't know anything about females. They go through life just a shill. Just like a rock on the beach that you kick around, or a seashell that you just fucking walk over, kick over. You know what I mean? They're like, people probably just look over you because you're just like a wallflower. Branch out. Don't be afraid to come out of your seashell, if you will. Come out, bloom, blossom. Get a girlfriend and experiment, and you'll experience new things with her. You'll be blown out of your mind of what you can do with a female and what they'll do for you if you're pleasing them. But if you're getting this offended and offensive over a sexual storyline on a television show and you're claiming it's not pro wrestling, you don't know pro wrestling. Go back years, buddy. It absolutely is a part of pro wrestling because it's called a storyline. Last I checked, half of pro wrestling is storylines and characters. Dumb fucks. I said I wasn't going to rant and rave. I was just going to show you guys the numbers. But how can I not? A whole week has almost gone by, and there's still people, grown men, that are just offended beyond belief that the women have taken such a huge step backwards. But where was the viewing audience for the pay-per-view? Where was the viewing audience for all those main events that the women were in? Guys, again, you don't gotta like what I'm saying. I love women's wrestling. If you watch this channel religiously, you know I'm one of the biggest advocates. Go back and look at all my thumbnails and all the titles. A lot of that shit is for females, which is not a big commodity in the YouTube world. A lot of people think that it's just the men that will get you the clicks. I don't care about that. I put a lot of the women in those thumbnails and in the headlines. I love the women's fucking revolution, evolution, and I love to see where they're gonna go next. But if I'm being factual and I'm being honest with you guys, which is what I always am, they didn't produce shit. The numbers consistently went down. So all Vince is doing is he's bringing back a little bit of sexuality for people like the Amplify Man, and 5.5 million on one video, 2.2 million on another video, and the millions that don't even go on WWE's YouTube page that still love that shit. For all of us, it's just a little bit of extra entertainment for us. A 30-second Alexa Bliss clip, if even, maybe it was 20 seconds tops, out of a 3-hour program offended you that much? One storyline out of several with Mandy Rose the next night offended you that much? She was in a silk robe. That offended you that much? You are a lame human being, dude. I'm not even going to use the term man anymore. You're definitely not a man. If you are, you're a beta male. Just a beta male, that's the most I'm gonna give you. But as a human being, you're pathetic, bro. If you're that guarded with you and what you do sexually and what you view sexually and you don't want, if you're that guarded and that much of a fucking wallflower and a fucking shell of a human being, if you're honestly that mundane, if you're that lackluster as a human being, bro, don't speak for the rest of us. Just because you are so put off on it, don't speak for the rest of us. Because there's still real men out there. Real men. Work their asses off. Respect every human being. Male or female. Straight or gay. Black or white. Anywhere in between. We respect everybody. And then when we watch our entertainment, we like all forms. It doesn't make us bad people. It doesn't mean that we're taking movements or a race of people or a gender of people back to the beginning of time. No. It just means we're being entertained by characters on a TV show. It's nothing more than that. And that's why people tune in. 'Cause it was entertaining. Sex sells. Deal with it. You lame piece of shits. Let's move on to scene 3, the revival. They're not so revived, are they? Scene 3, not so revived. Action! So scene 3, as you can see up on the slate, we're calling this Not So Revived. Because you have a tag team like the Revival who comes from NXT with some damn good success, and then once they get to the main roster, they fall into obscurity. But at first glance, you're kind of like, okay, so why is the Revival any different than anyone else? Everybody falls into obscurity when they get to the main roster. Even what WWE deems to be top-level talent, they still fall into obscurity. So everybody joins the conga line, and this isn't No Way Jose's conga line, no, this is the obscurity conga line, where everybody falls into it and it's packed to capacity. There's so many people in obscurity in WWE, they don't know what to do with the ones they've already put into the side. They've already shoved them to the side so far into obscurity that got overpopulated, and now they have to jump into that pile and say, fuck, how much lower can we put you? But what blew me away this week was all the outrage over the Revival requesting their releases from WWE. Now, by now, maybe there's another layer to the story, but at first we heard several days ago, it was that the Revival requested their release. Then we heard the story that they straight up quit. Then it was back to, no, they asked for their release. Then we heard WWE is not granting it to them. By now, by the time this video comes out, maybe they're already released, maybe it comes to find out they never asked for their release. Whichever the story here is, this scene has nothing to do with them actually asking for the release or not. This has everything to do with this fake outrage, this fake outpouring for the Revival. And I say it's fake because it's unwarranted. You look at two 5'10" dudes, 220 pounds apiece, and I promise you, it ain't muscle, or at least, there's some, listen, it's just not 220 pounds of muscle. They're both 5'10", and they have the charisma of my third coat of paint on the wall that I'm currently doing. That's the truth. This isn't throwing shade. I actually don't mind the Revival because they put on such great matches down in NXT, and we know they're good wrestlers when it gets down to it. When you give them the time and when you give them good talent to work with, we know they can put on great wrestling matches. That's right, I even said great. We saw that in NXT. Those matches with American Alpha? What was that, 2 out of 3 falls? Some shit that I remember. How about the match with DIY? Come on, those matches I even like the Enzo and Cass matches. But I can see great wrestling down at the local bingo hall from Danny Dipshit Dugenheimer and Bobby Buttfuck Bandito. They're fine. I can see great wrestling everywhere, from any era. From Mr. Perfect and Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, to before that, man, Tito Santana, to the Benoits, the Guerreros, the Mysterios, to today where there's a fucking plethora. From Neville to fucking Finn Balor, everywhere in between. People love Mustafa Ali now. Anybody under 5'10" and under 200 pounds, people are going ecstatic. Some of it's warranted. Some of it actually has, some of these superstars actually have the ring psychology, the selling, the mannerisms, the promo work. Some of them have all that to back up just the wrestling, like Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa down there in NXT. But others, let's be honest, it's just their great wrestling. But they don't have the promos to match. They don't have that captivating charisma that makes you larger than life or that captivates people. So you're just stuck to great wrestling at times. Well, that's not enough to get you over in WWE. I could have told you that. In fact, I did tell you that. From day one, I said that those characters will never get over on the main roster. I said that from day one, did I not, guys? Let me hear it. Even if you hate the Amplified Man, but you can't help but click on my videos. But even if you hate me, you can say, you were right, BC. That's right, Moore. Thank you. I will accept your apology. And for those that fucking knew I was telling the truth from the beginning, again, you had nothing to worry about because the Amplified Man came through again, didn't he? I was correct. Of course I was correct. And you wonder back why I said that when they first arrived, when I praised them in NXT. So if you just did your research and what I was saying and you thought about it, you would have known I had no shade or hate to them. Because listen to what I was saying. Their NXT reviews that I did do, and whenever I talked about the Revival in their NXT days, I praised them. I'm the one who said that was match of the year. Who was that? American Alpha or a fucking, or DIY? Both of them could have been, in my opinion. I'm the one who was saying that. So here they are, day one on the main roster, and I'm saying they'll never make it? Obviously, I didn't not like them, or I wasn't throwing shade. I just knew. Their personas, those characters first and foremost, but their personas and their charisma for this product, for this company, was not going to work. And I got some hate for it, and I got people who are big Revival fans, or especially big indie marks, and they were like, BC, you don't know what you're talking about. I agree with you 99% of the time, but this is that 1% that you're wrong. If Vince just gives them the time of day, man, the Revival will be something. And I called bullshit. Vince could offer them the sun and the moon and everything in between, and I'm going to tell you guys what would have happened. Crickets. You go back to every single Revival match. This has nothing to do with the way they were being booked. Trust me. Everybody, if your name wasn't Roman Reigns, was being booked like trash. Or maybe Charlotte Flair at the time. Everybody was being booked like 50-50 redundancy trash. The Revival was no different. The reason, if you go back to every Revival match, not one person stands up when they come out, not one person applauds and stands up and gives a shit when they're wrestling, and not one person stands up when they win or lose. Do you know why? They captivated nobody. So sure, you give them a few times in a month, not even just a year, a month, to go up there and put on 25-minute classics, even a half an hour. You'll get the golf clap at the end. You'll get some oohs and some ahs. Some people would open their eyes to what they can do in the ring. But if you can't captivate people in promos, if you can't captivate us with your upfront charisma, if you can't keep us hanging on to every fucking detail in a storyline, you ain't going nowhere, Jack. That's the truth. It is hard to hear. And there's people that have come out on this platform and they are fucking irate. And if they just had knowledge of the business of this company and what WWE has always been, sports entertainment, you would know this isn't a full throttle, just plain wrestling company. Hopefully you get that. Hopefully we get that in AEW. Absolutely. Hopefully you get that in your hometown's bingo hall. Or any local promotion. Or go to Ring of Honor or New Japan and watch their action. WWE has never been about just the pure wrestling. Trust me. Maybe in your world that would be epic, but in mine, I want the full package. I want the entertainment in the storylines, in the badass promos. That's the only way you're gonna become larger than life to me. So people are irate because of a tag team that is more suited for the indies. A tag team that is more suited for smaller promotions like an AEW in a Ring of Honor. Maybe even in New Japan, they'll get over. WWE is not suited for that. It's not molded that way. Now you can beg that it changes that way, that's fine. I'm not going to be on that picket line with you. I'm not going to be in that movement with you. Because even if they're putting on great wrestling matches, which is at the end of the day what we want to see, no question. But I want to see them at the pay-per-views. Or I want to see them a couple of great wrestling matches during the television week. I'm okay with one great match on Monday, one great match on Tuesday, but most of those television shows should be about producing great characters, building great characters, and producing and building great storylines. So you allow them several great matches every month, that's fine, but how are they captivating me other than that? Why am I giving a fuck about them? Because they're just great wrestlers? Guys, we live in an era right now where there's a million great wrestlers. Again, Danny Dipshit Dugenheimer and Bobby Buttfuck Bandito down the fucking road are great wrestlers. Or the fucking local talent at your local bingo hall. That's great wrestlers and great talents that can put on great wrestling matches. I've seen great wrestlers my whole life, and yes, at the end of the day, at the pay-per-views with the big ultimate payoff and the blow-off to a big badass feud, I want to see the great wrestling match. But fuck, you gotta get me to that finish line. If you don't captivate me from the starting point, then that whole race, you've already lost me. By the time you got to the finish line, I don't give a fuck. I'll give you a golf clap because you put on a great wrestling match, but you gave me no entertainment outside of it. BC, the entertainment is the wrestling match. No! Not in WWE. That's my point, guys. Listen to me. It's never been. It's the biggest part of the show that we love. The actual wrestling, that's the biggest part that we love. But that's not what captivated us since the time we were kids. Whether you grew up in my era, which was the late 80s into the early 90s, or whether you grew up in the Attitude Era, or even Ruthless Aggression. Never has WWE, that company, been solely about the professional wrestling aspect. It has always been about the larger-than-life characters, the storylines, those promos, those captivating moments. The wrestling was the payoff and the blow-off. The last several years, we've just gotten to a point where we just give redundant matches, time after time, week after week. So there was no larger-than-life characters being created. There was no epic storylines for us to give a shit about. So the revival doesn't go to the top of the line that they were used poorly more than anyone else. No, they're just in the line. But this outcry for these two 5'10" dudes just because, yes, they can wrestle. Well, shit. Finn Balor can wrestle, and he was booked like a fucking... They didn't know how to book him. One day he's a low-carder to a mid-carder. Then he's fucking back to a low-carder. Then they tried him around with a main event for a couple of fucking weeks. Gets the championship, gets injured, comes back as a mid-carder, back to a low-card. He was all over the place. You could call that tragic. Neville was a guy, even with his height and his size, he could have been a main eventer. He actually started to develop awesome mic skills. He started to get in some good storylines. Put him in 205 Live down into obscurity. Then he was never heard of him again because he walked away because he felt he was being used like trash. At least he has a gripe. That was a great wrestler with at least a gripe. But he had shit to back up just his wrestling ability. You're not gonna tell me, a dude watching this shit for 3 decades plus, the Revival was anything more than a team that was able to put on some damn good matches. Down in NXT. That's the truth, man. Does it sting? Does it hurt? Good. I'm not here to make you feel good all the time. I'm not here just to fucking give you what you want to hear. That's the truth. You claim you're a diehard WWE fan, not just pro wrestling, WWE. But yet you're outraged and your mind is boggled as to how WWE could lose talents like the Revival. Why the Revival was used the way they were used. Because it's the fucking Revival. There's nothing epic about these dudes. Everybody down in NXT, it seems, at those takeovers puts on dynamite matches. That doesn't mean all of them are going to be produced the same in WWE. Again, I'm just giving you guys truth. You don't gotta like it, man. But the outrage from some of these indie dudes and indie marks and these fucking people that claim they know what WWE, right? They want better WWE television. But they're crying because 2 guys that lack charisma to the 10th degree asked for their release. Come on, man. You can't be that naive. Know what you're watching, and if that's the case, then AEW is definitely for you. ROH, companies like that, they lack a lot more in the entertainment aspect as a whole, but they focus a bit more on the actual professional wrestling. Then those are the companies for you, man. But don't cry when talents aren't given a big push. Because Vince, whether you like it or not, he still has an eye for fucking talent. Whether he decides to utilize you or not, whether he decides to push you or not, that's another story, and that's why we get pissed off at that son of a bitch. Because it's plain to see, Sasha Banks has all this fucking talent, and he refused to push her for the longest time. I'm just using her as an example. There's a multitude of talent. But the Revival is the hill that you want to die on? The Revival is the line that you want to picket on? The Revival is the protest and the march that you want to move on? Of all the fucking people to be done dirty by WWE, the Revival is the one that pissed you off the most. Please, that is, and again, this is no shade. I'll have a fucking beer, a coffee, whatever with the Revival. I'll talk pro wrestling with them. I'll tell them face to face why I knew they were not going to get over on the main roster. And then I give them some pointers, some things that could help. BC, you think you can help the Revival? This is laughable. Who the fuck are you, BC? Somebody that knew from the beginning that this wasn't gonna work. Somebody who is right time after time on this fucking channel. Somebody who is a creator here in New York as it is. Somebody making their own movie. Created this channel from scratch. Has multiple books in 16 different countries. Somebody who has created 4 different screenplays. A creator that right now could be working within the wrestling business, and soon, ain't gonna give too much away, but soon I just might be. That's who I am. I'd shoot the shit with the Revival. I got no personal beef, no fucking feud, no heat is being thrown or fucking shade. I don't mind them at all. I want to see them succeed. But this marriage with them in the WWE's main roster, never going to work. You can blame Vince, you can blame booking, you can blame creativity. You can just look at that reaction they got. Look at the crowd. Disengaged. They started to even lose the diehard indie mark fans that win or lose 5-minute match or 25-minute match, they were going to be behind the Revival. They even started to lose them. You think the mainstream media and casual fan was going to be captivated by a team with the slogan of no flips, just fists? Shit, I love that. I'm an old school barroom brawl type of dude. But today's wrestling fan, the casuals and the fucking mainstream media, they want the flips and the dives and all that. So right off the bat, even their wrestling style was going to lose some people. But we know, as wrestling fans, wrestling purists, that they can put on damn good wrestling matches without the flips and the dives. Their ground and technical game, bar none, badass. I give them nothing but the most praise. You guys aren't listening to me. You think I'm just fucking belittling or I'm just throwing shade. It can't be anything farther than the truth. What I'm doing is I'm being a realist. Them in the WWE main roster wasn't going to work for a plethora of reasons, including the many I gave in this scene alone. You don't gotta like it. You ain't even gotta fucking believe in my words. But they all came true. You can't hide the fact of reality. You can't hide from the fact of factual evidence. Everything I said ended up coming out to be true, more so now than ever before. And I saw it from day number one. Because I try to tell you guys, I look at pro wrestling in each individual company, in each individual storyline, in each individual character, and even the person playing that character. I look at each of them as an individual and I give them the utmost attention to detail. I have a specific focus that every storyline, character, and company that I give to it. I watch pro wrestling like no one else, like a hawk, and I overanalyze, sometimes to a negative effect, because I'll overanalyze it and I gotta pull myself back. But I do that shit for reasons, so I know that what I'm about to say is fact, not just opinion. The Revival was no different from the time they were in NXT to the time they got to the main roster. I studied them. I put a pristine focus and analyzed every detail. And I knew it wasn't going to work. Vince could have pushed them to the moon. You guys honestly think that was going to be the next biggest larger-than-life tag team? Or even middle ground? You could have thrown the tag titles on them for a year straight. The Revival wasn't getting over. The Revival was not going to be top-level guys on WWE's main roster. Just wasn't going to happen. And I hope, if the story ends up being true and they ask for the release, I hope WWE eventually does. And I hope they can go to AEW and Ring of Honor and be top-level guys. There's no doubt in my mind that because those companies are going to be focused more on the wrestling purist side of it, that they can do such. It's just in this company, guys, you know I'm right. Wasn't going to happen, no matter how they were booked. It's sad but true. But we'll blame the booking because it's an easy target. WWE has not booked anybody correctly in fucking years. Let's go on to the ending credits, guys. We have a lot more stories to get to and a lot more video to get to, and we're going pretty long here. We're going to that 2-hour mark. So I do want to move things on. I got a lot of stories I want to get to, but thank you for letting me go a little overboard on the Revival story, because I think a lot of things got lost in translation. And I made this scene because a lot of people were on social media wondering why this was such a big deal. And the people that were pissed off at the Revival, they were trying to tell those people, what do you mean, why is it a big deal? The Revival is one of the best tag teams in the world, and this and that. And it's like, yes, they put on great tag team matches in NXT. Yes, you could even classify them, wrestling-wise, as one of the best tag teams in the world. All of that might be true, but you're missing the focal point here, which is they asked for their release from the WWE because the WWE wasn't putting them in the spot that they wanted to be in, and WWE looked at them and said, you don't have the charisma and you're not capturing the creativity and captivating anybody in an entertainment aspect, in an entertainment ways. You're not doing such, so we're not going to push you. That's the real story behind this. And the people that hated the fact that the Revival was leaving WWE, their only argument was, how can WWE let this tag team go? Now, hopefully, you guys are educated onto and as to why. It's because when you stand back and look at what they were going to do outside of just good wrestling matches, they weren't captivating anybody. This was a recipe for disaster from the beginning. So for those fans on social media that didn't know why this was such a big story, the Revival was nothing special to them. Don't worry. You haven't just like bumped your head and gone on to some fifth dimension. You're normal. There was nothing special about this. Nothing shocked me when I heard that they might have asked for their release. Or they might be getting released. Nothing shocked me about that. if you listen to this channel from day one, I didn't get distorted by great wrestling. I didn't get distorted by what they did in another promotion or their developmental company. I didn't get distorted. I saw what was in front of me, and I analyzed it the only way I know how, by facts. And I knew what was going to happen. This was the only outcome, guys. Sad but true, maybe to you. But for me, I want the entertainment factor as a whole. I want the great wrestling match to be the finish line. But I want that starting line to be ferocious. I want the whole middle part of that race to be dynamite and electric. The Revival isn't going to do that. Not for me. So again, if you're that upset about it, then the WWE is probably your not main brand anyway, or shouldn't be, because that's not what they've ever been about. That's the payoff. Sad but true for you guys, man. I wish the Revival nothing but the best, whether they're getting released or not. By the making of this video, maybe they're already released. Maybe WWE said, no, we're never going to release you, because we know you're just going to go to competition. Who the fuck knows? I'm shut up about it. We're going to go to the end credits, guys. A lot more news stories to talk about. And just like that, man, damn, does time fly. Life is a series of hellos and goodbyes. I'm afraid it's time for goodbye. But for this week, next week I'll be right back with you guys next Sunday for the 4th episode of BC's Pro Wrestling Amplified podcast. And just like the opening credits, we have the end credits. Every great production needs to acknowledge the end credits. And just like those opening credits, it's going to be some rapid fire news stories coming at you fast and furious. So let's start off with Roman Reigns. He posed with some fans within the last 24 hours at some event that he was at, and he was looking pretty damn healthy. He was looking good. If anything, it looks like he even gained some weight. Usually when you're under, I call it under the weather. It's a little bit more severe than that, but usually when you have something like that, you thin out, you thin down. And Roman looked like he put on some weight, man. His face is thicker. He's still got the beard. His hair's looking good. It's Roman Reigns, man. Looks like he's doing good. Hopefully that is the case. We've heard from Seth Rollins in a roundabout way, Chris Jericho in a roundabout way, that he is doing good. Well, by the looks of it, he posed with a few fans within the last 24 hours. Looking good, man. That's got to be a really good sight to see. For sure. I know it was when I saw the picture. When I saw that there was a photo and Roman had posed with fans, I wasn't quite sure what to expect because people can be in different stages of things and it's a touchy subject. I didn't know what to really, was that going to be the Roman that I'm used to? Yeah, you guys know what I mean. And that was Roman Reigns, man. He looked, for me, when somebody has even a little bit more weight on him, they look even more healthier. So that's what it looked like to me. So that was really good. I did want to send that out to you guys in case you did not see that photo or didn't hear about that story. Roman Reigns was out and about posing with fans. That is really good to hear, and the photo was really good to see. Moving on, I want to give some shout outs to some wrestler birthdays this week. A lot of wrestling birthdays. Batista turns 50 years old this week. 50! I don't even want to think about Batista as 50. Luckily for Batista, we don't gotta think of him as 50 because he's probably hipper and cooler than all of us combined. The guy's 50 years old and still rocking skinny jeans to no end. I'll be the first to admit, I can't rock skinny jeans, guys. Maybe my package is too big, I have no idea. I'm just not comfortable in them. I got the wrong size jeans, I believe, twice in my life, and it was horrendous. I never wore them a second time. I need bigger, I need fucking some room. I don't know. I used to just pick on dudes that wore skinny jeans, but I also at the same time got to give you props because I don't know how you rock that shit. Batista at 50 years old is rocking that shit. Happy birthday to Batista in all seriousness. 50 years old. R-Truth, 47 years old. 47! R-Truth still acts like he's 21 and we all love it. R-Truth is just one of the best characters, man. He doesn't age at all. Doesn't look like he ages at all. So he's got father time on his side. That guy will be 77, 87 years old and he'll still look like the R-Truth that we know and love. A little bit younger, Tyler Breeze. He turned 31 years old this week. So happy birthday, Tyler Breeze, 31. I was going to say he's in his 30s, but he already was last year when he turned 30. So what the fuck am I talking about? Pat Patterson, 78 years old. So Pat Patterson is leading the charge as far as age. 78, rocking it out, man. So those happy birthdays I did want to get out there. Velveteen Dream, real quick. Velveteen Dream is taking to social media and in interviews, and he's saying, I want a match with John Cena. For those of you that don't know, who don't watch NXT, Velveteen Dream is a big character in NXT. I believe he's one of the few characters that when he gets to the main roster, he has the chance to be that all too familiar phrase you guys hear me say all the time, larger than life. Velveteen Dream, if they book him correctly and he keeps that love, that passion, that charisma with that character, he's got a chance to be larger than life. He's talked about how he wants a match with John Cena before Cena actually calls it a quits. Listen, if done correctly, I'm on board. Take my money with that shit. I'm definitely on board. Would Vince do that? Is Triple H anywhere near losing or allowing himself to lose Velveteen Dream from NXT and letting Vince McMahon have a talent like Velveteen Dream? I have no idea. But the Velveteen Dream, if he ever does get to the main roster and Cena is still around, even just part-time, Velveteen Dream and Cena can put on one hell of a storyline, not just a match. And I'll end this podcast off, guys, with Sasha Banks again. I talked about Sasha Banks. I compared her to, like, Caitlin Ohashi earlier in the opening credits, and just with her mannerisms, her expressions, her selling, just the love for this business, the passion she has when she gets in the ring is the same that Caitlin Ohashi has when she gets on that gymnast floor. But she's in some hot water again, Sasha Banks, for words that she said, and she always is, because Sasha Banks is one of those polarizing figures in pro wrestling, especially the WWE, which means everything she says is going to be polarized. And if she says one thing that offends or triggers or upsets a group of people, it's going to become a headline. So she was in this interview, and it was more Sasha Banks than Mercedes. Mercedes is just the girl that plays Sasha Banks, the woman that plays Sasha Banks. So there was aspects of Mercedes in the interview, and then there was a lot of Sasha Banks. So she went on in a Sasha Banks-esque form to say how she's the best at what she does. She's the best women's wrestler in that locker room, and she's better than half the men in that locker room. She's better than half the men's roster. And people flipped out when she said that. When they heard about it, she was like, you're not even in their league. You're not even 1% of what they are. How dare she disrespect the men? I saw and read it all, guys, and I was befuddled. What do you expect her to say? She's cutting a Sasha Banks-esque promo. Now, do I believe in real life that Mercedes and Sasha Banks, the real woman and the character that she plays, has the same chip on her shoulder in real life and the character that she plays? Absolutely. I believe Mercedes has that same chip on her shoulder that Sasha does. I believe that Mercedes, every day she steps in that ring, just like Sasha Banks, they have a chip on their shoulder and they need to prove that they are the best. So I absolutely believe that the real women behind the character and the character that she plays, they're not far from one another. I believe it's Mercedes amplified to 10. Like Stone Cold always said, that was his character. That was Steve Williams. That's Steve Austin's real name. I hate to shock you guys. It's not Steve Austin in real life, it's Steve Williams. But when he played the Steve Austin character, Stone Cold, it would be blown up, magnified to 10. Well, that's basically what Sasha is from Mercedes. So you have to remember that in her interviews, even when it sounds like it's just a Mercedes interview, she's still pulling a lot of that Sasha Banks, though. And she wants everyone to know that she doesn't care who it is, she feels she's better. There's nothing wrong with that. I want that type of confidence in all the superstars. I want that type of confidence in no matter what your profession is. If you're a rock star, if you're a local stock boy, if you're a WWE wrestler, if you're a roadie to the rock band, if you're fucking bagging groceries, if you're selling cheeseburgers or making somebody's coffee, I don't care what your shit is. Own that shit and be as confident as fuck that you are the best at it. You're the best coffee maker this side of town. You're the best coffee maker in the world. You make the best burgers than anybody working out of McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's in this world. You're the best. You're the best janitor / custodian in the world. Nobody gets the walls and the floors brighter than you. And you own that shit. Nobody can bag a bag of groceries faster and more precise than you. And perfectly placed like it's a game of Tetris. The bread is perfectly placed right above the eggs. And both are above all the boxes of cereal and pastas. And the jars, they're at the end and always double bagged. Nobody's better than you. So she's saying, male, woman, it doesn't matter. I'm better than half of the men's roster too. And people flipped out. Well, do you think Chyna would have never said that? Chyna was actually taking on the men when she was in WWE. Literally. She was a former Intercontinental Champion. Do you think Chyna in an interview was going to say, I'm not even better than half the men? Charlotte Flair or Becky Lynch in interviews going to say, well, I'm not better than any of the men, but I'm a damn good female wrestler. No, Becky Lynch calls herself the man. Becky Lynch got in John Cena's face and pretty much called him out. Sasha can't say she's better than half of the fucking men's roster. Come on, man. It builds up that character. It builds up Sasha Banks. And when she inevitably, because it has to happen, turns heel, that fire is going to be fucking bursting. The flames are going to be at an all-time high. But you have to allow her to add fuel to that fire. And interviews like this adds that fuel. But if you're not even going to let her start the fire, and you're just going to try to put out the fire the second she tries to start it, then she's not going to have any fuel when big things are to come. I hope that makes sense. Let her do these interviews. Let her have that confidence. Let her say insane things. Yes, that's insane. Not that I think she can't beat any of the men. I'm not saying that. It's an insanely outrageous comment because you don't really hear that. Sasha Banks is not this big individual. On top of that, she's a female competitor. The men are known to be much more powerful and brutal and all that shit. So if you got a guy like Braun Strowman taking on Sasha Banks, that's not exactly a fair fight. If you have one of the members of the AOP taking on Sasha Banks, not exactly a fair fight. Roman Reigns taking on Sasha, that's not a fair fight. You know, a Bobby Roode versus Sasha Banks, it's not fair, I don't feel. You know, that's not putting a gender down. It's just, that's not a fair fight to me. But who knows who she's talking to? Maybe she thinks she can beat Finn Balor. Again, highly unlikely, and I doubt that. And not a fair fight even with Finn, I don't feel. But I don't know who she talked about, but maybe it was just an outrageous comment just to show you she has the confidence. Let it be. People are actually irate and pissed off that she was disrespecting the men's roster. Come on, man. She's such a polarizing figure that I've realized there's no gray with Sasha Banks. Either you love her or you hate her. Not a lot of fans are just like, yeah, Sasha Banks, I can take her or leave her. Fans either love her passionately or hate her passionately. That's polarizing, but I take no stock in those words. I loved it when I heard that. That's the confidence that I want from the character, legit boss Sasha Banks. I love it. I want to hear more of that. If we start hearing reports that she's backstage picking fights with the guys in real life, then maybe I'm on board with, hey, somebody's got to get her under control. Until I hear that type of shit, be cool, kids, be cool. I'm the Amplified Man. What a hell of a 2 hours it's been. Thank you so much for all of you that have been here from second number 1 of this video all the way to the end credits. You guys are the true rock stars. You guys are my front lines in the Amplified unit. And we do this together, man. Trust me. This is a La Familia type situation when you are on the Amplified podcast. Because we go 2 full throttle Amplified hours. Nobody, especially on this platform, goes 2 full hours as amplified as I do. They take segments off. They talk normally. They talk in a boring fashion. That's fine if that's their style. I only know one speed and one style. If I'm going 2 hours, I'm giving you guys my best. No exceptions. Nobody does it at the rate that I do it. And that's what makes this, you guys and I, and what we got, man, this is what makes it so special. This is why this podcast is thriving so far in its infancy. And I hope it just keeps exploding. And it only does that if all of us are on our A game. If all of us are loving this as passionately as Caitlin Ohashi. That fucking little gymnast who's lighting the world on fire, man. What an inspiration. To anybody who does anything with their life. That's it. I'm gonna shut up, guys. That was a 2 fucking hour. Wow, man. We rock. We really rock. I'll see you guys, Tuesday morning for the Raw review and reaction. I'll see you guys Wednesday morning for SmackDown's review and reaction. Maybe I'll have an impromptu video later in the week. And then next Sunday, that Amplified podcast, episode number 4, that is the morning of the Royal Rumble. So I'm going to do some type of Royal Rumble theme, guys. And we're going to have a fucking blast. The Amplified man, holla at your boy. Peace, cause he's out. For now, check you.